if you sit and actually realize how many third parties your business works with, how integrated they are with your strategies, with your technologies, with your your future growth at organization, it's really, really important to understand those relationships better, to be able to evaluate them, to be able to pull in risk intelligence and to continuously monitor those engagements. So you have performance monitoring, you have contract monitoring, things like that. And you really need to commit to it. It's something that I think those who take it seriously and those who build resiliency strategies, so you have redundancies in the supply chain, you have options, you have not just one provider, that kind of thing. You have a much richer organization, and you have a much richer opportunity for your business. So it's worth investing in, it's worth doing well, it's worth taking seriously.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our interview with Loren Johnson. Loren is a risk evangelist at Aravo, which is a risk and resilience solutions provider. Loren, welcome to our Risk Management Show podcast today.
Hi, Boris. Nice to see you again. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Last time we talked, we covered GRC market, and you were at a metric stream. Now you work for Aravo, and it's more focused on the third-party risk. But before we touch our main topic, which is the third-party risk management, could you come back a little bit and tell us a story about yourself, what you did in the last couple of years, and what you guys at Aravo up to these days?
Sure, that sounds great. Yeah, I've been working in the GRC space for about 8 years. I was at MetricStream before this, but I was at Navex before that. So I've kind of worked in a couple of companies that do the full kind of suite solutions for GRC, and I work for Aravo now. And I find that this is a really, really interesting market, where GRC itself is very interesting, and it's a growing concern among a lot of companies, and it's obviously very regulated, and a lot of industries really have to commit to GRC to make a lot of impact in their own businesses, especially as the risks and the environment expand. You have now ESG and things that kind of sit inside the kind of GRC governance type of environment. But I find that when I look at where the changes are happening in the market and where the most dynamic elements of the market, it's really in third-party risk and resiliency. So third-party risk, of course, is one section of kind of a whole enterprise risk approach. But when you look at the news, when you read about things that are happening out in the market, when you read about things in the supply chain, and you read about companies that are having challenges, so much of it is about third-party risk. Even recently we had the story about CrowdStrike, and that was a third party to the companies that ended up, going offline and things. You have stories about like Sriracha, had a shortage of chilies a couple years ago, maybe 2 years ago, because they had only one farm they were using to provide those chilies for them, which is a third party, and there was a concentration risk there that ended up taking down some of their productivity of the Sriracha maker. And you see these things all the time, and it's really expansive. You see third-party issues with Uyghur labor in China. You see third-party issues with child labor in Africa making chocolate. You see it's really all over the place, and it's in the news every day. So I find it fascinating. And I think the resiliency element of it, how to recover from a risk event, is something that we can talk about more here, but it's something that is still, I think, not explored well enough. So it's a really dynamic and interesting market. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So can you just start with the definition, because we have a lot of definition of third-party risk and maybe vendor risk, and it has been evolving since COVID, I think, because it's a lot of changes, and also ESG is playing a lot of role, supply chain. So can you start with kind of definition, how you guys approaching this project?
Sure, and I think it's an expanding market. And so I think where it kind of started was with anti-bribery corruption. So like the FCPA, the federal, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act from the US has been around since 1970, mid-70s, 77 or so. And that, I think, defined a lot of the requirements around how do you work with foreign governments, or businesses, how do you work in areas where there are foreign governments that are invested in businesses, all that kind of complication and things. And then you had UK Bribery Act. You have other acts around the world. You have the LKSG, which is out of Germany about supply chains. You have SEC is now requiring climate disclosure elements, and although they didn't include the scope 3, which is the third party element of that, you still have these kinds of momentums building for sustainable supply chains and other elements that are really central to third party risk. When I look at it, I see it as anti-bribery corruption and financial investments and delivery assurances. So if there's a drought in the Panama Canal, how does that affect your delivery of your goods? A concentration risk like the sriracha thing I was talking about. And you have a cyber risk, which is a really big piece of third-party risk now that's become a really prominent element in a lot of businesses because there's no flexibility there. If you have a third-party failure in a cyber environment, your whole company goes down or something else happens. You're affecting your consumers or losing data or something. It's a really, really important piece of it. And then you have the ESG pieces. So it's really kind of expanded from a kind of simple bribery corruption type of thing to really covering everything that happens along your supply chain with your vendors, with your contractors, with your joint ventures, with your resellers, with your agents, everybody who kind of is not your own organization, but is kind of your extended enterprise. It's a very big space and very strategic for most businesses.
Absolutely. Just yesterday here in the Netherlands, we had a smaller airport, not in Schiphol, but in Eindhoven in the south. That was kind of completely not working yesterday because of a kind of glitch in some software providers. It was not CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike was a few weeks before, but that was only affected this airport. And nothing happened. No arrivals, no departures. So it's a kind of complete standstill. Yeah. All right. So can you explain why
Yeah,
do
edit it
this?
out. Okay.
Why do these third-party risk management programs often fail, and what can be done to overcome these challenges?
Yeah, well, I think if you're talking about like the airport element, you were just saying that things are going offline. Too few businesses have a resiliency strategy in place where it kind of reflects their risk management. You put a lot of effort into what's my risk, how deep is it, what's the likelihood, what's the severity of it, and you kind of score it and you can prioritize things like that when you have a good system in place. But with a resiliency strategy, you should similarly have a set of rules and processes and ownership and accountability that says we can get this back online quicker. And that makes a big difference for delivering to your customers. For why systems fail, it's remarkable to me to talk to customers, to talk to buyers out there in the market where people are still using an office productivity solution to run a really complex third-party environment. Excel does not allow for automation for you to score things, for you to prioritize where risks are, and for you to make better decisions. So there's too many people still using kind of legacy software that's not designed for third-party risk, that just cannot do the scaling and the complexity of what the risk environment looks like now and can't kind of make sense of it. And you really need to have something to make sense of it because you need to know where to put your efforts to reduce your risk and to better manage it and understand it. Another thing is you don't often get the leadership buy-in that I think companies need to have. These days, when you have so many things in the news about risk, third-party risk and risk altogether, when you have something like the pandemic, which took so many businesses down, and you saw which ones succeeded and got back up on their feet faster, those ones generally had better programs in place for risk management and for resiliency. So the ownership of it, the leadership of the organization, the board who needs to understand what's our real risk environment and what are we doing to best manage it, that kind of buy-in is still missing in a lot of organizations, and that's really required. And I think another thing is people don't understand where they are. They don't know how to mature to make their programs more mature. Where do you invest first? What risks do you take on first? Where's your priorities? And they often need people to help them do that. So it's a kind of a combination of not right software. It's not purpose built for it. Leadership that isn't totally bought in, and then you have a confusion and kind of frustration and fragmentation of systems. Like, what are we really doing here? And you have people kind of, the risk experts are kind of pulling their hair out, saying, what are we supposed to do? And sometimes you need to look at regulations. If you look at, like I was referencing FCPA and other things, but if you look at DORA, which is European, the Digital Operational Resiliency Act, which is focused on financial companies, but it also, if you look at DORA, it's like 100 pages, but 25 pages are about third-party management. And there were very specific requirements there, prescriptive requirements about you must have a single solution, you must have a registry, you must be able to audit it, you must be able to ensure that every third party and fourth party is aligned to DORA requirements. And when you look at things like that, you don't want regulations that tell you how to run your program entirely, but it should give you pretty good guidelines about what kind of program to run, and that should help you prioritize stuff. So for failure, there's a lot of things that you need to solve, that kind of thing. And the DOJ in the US has guidance for corporate compliance programs and what you're supposed to do. Those kinds of documents can really help people prioritize and make better programs.
All right. So if we drill a little bit deeper, for example, if we take life of an average risk or compliance or CISO manager, if there is one thing that they should start prioritize right now that they're not doing right now, what would it be?
It's interesting because if you talk to different buyers, they have different priorities. A CISO is going to look for information technology, third-party risk management program, and they have a legitimate need for that. Obviously, it's something in the news a lot and something that you need to take care of. I think for others in the marketplace, the risk management team, they need to have something that integrates into their risk management program, and they can pull the right kind of data to report the right kinds of information and risk calculations to their executives. So they need to have something that allows them to pull the right data together to make the right decisions, have the right depth of information, risk intelligence integrations to be able to pull together the right information to share with others. So it's, one thing is hard to determine, but it depends on their program, where they are now, where they need to get to. If they're really just starting off, I would invest in a program that allows you to kind of aggregate your data and automate some of the decisions.
All right. So how do you see the AI and other emerging technologies affecting the third-party risk market in the next few years?
That's a big buzzword, right? So everybody's talking about AI. It's really interesting in this market because people are excited about AI. You can't not be, right? We're not isolated from other technologies and things in this market, but yet you have risk managers who are hesitant. And I think rightfully so. There's a lot of things about AI that make risk managers nervous. A lot of it has to do with what's in the magic box that makes AI happen. Who built the algorithms? How are decision elements weighted? What's the data input and output? Where does it come from? Is it a closed kind of, are you pulling data from within your own system, or is there like data leakage in or out of that system? And does that influence some of your decisions? So that kind of thing has to be figured out. And there's I think for companies that are looking at AI, they need to have a lot of governance about what are the rules around us, what are the policies, what are the enforcement actions, who and what can use AI within the company. And that's all really legitimate things. I think risk managers are probably more attuned to that than others. But in our market, the way I see it, and GRC altogether and TPRM in particular, is you have to have kind of a closed system. AI can deliver a lot of really good benefits, but you don't want to have an open AI system or generative that's pulling out outside information into your environment. You need to really understand that you can have the data, you can have that kind of large data models that can drive AI efficiencies in your programs, but you want to kind of keep it controlled and close to the vest for your own organization. The other side of it is we have a lot of customers that say, we want to ask our third parties about what's the degree of AI they're using in their own environments, because we need to protect our own data, our own customer information, things like that. So there's a new kind of dimension to evaluating the risk of a third party based on technology usage, where AI, you really have to be upfront and be able to tell your partners and your vendors and others that, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. That whole piece of governance is really, really important in this space. But there's big changes coming, so no doubt.
Yeah. It's also very, I think, risky to kind of train AI system with your own data for, like, for example, your own risk and your kind of controls, just because it can be available to other people and stuff like this.
Yeah, you have to have a lot of control over how the algorithms are being designed and built, and how weighting has happened with your scoring or otherwise, whatever you're applying it to. And you have to keep it in a closed system, at least for now, I think, and for the foreseeable future. This is really, business critical information, and risk management is not something people openly talk about often. It's kind of like, your little bit of dirty laundry. You want to keep it close to your own organization and manage the access and reporting and AI elements that are involved in it. So it's rightfully the market's a little bit wary about it right now within TPRM.
Mhm. So,
Yeah.
Loren, I would like to ask you a personal point of view. What are the major misconceptions in the field of third-party risk space that you kind of strongly disagree with?
That I strongly disagree with. Um, I have to think about that. I think the thing that always surprises me is that people don't take it seriously enough.
Oh,
And I see that in companies across industries and across sizes. There are certain industries like finance and pharma that are really, they've been doing this a long time and they can take it pretty seriously. And there's repercussions if you don't. But among some other industries, you still see things happening that I'm just like, oh my God, how can this be happening in this environment? There was a story in New York Times in April this year about Indian sugar farmers. You may have seen it, but it was talking about how the sugar farming industry there is abusive to people. And then
mhm.
they showed that the owners of the sugar farms shipped their sugar to another provider and then to another, and it was like 6 degrees, but at the top of the chain was Coke and Pepsi. And Coke and
Uh-huh.
Pepsi, the local franchises were acquiring sugar from indirectly from these farmers. And the discussion in the article was like, well, what can Coke and Pepsi do about this? And the authors are like, everybody's passing the buck here. They're saying it's not my responsibility, but it really is. And I think part of what we're seeing in this market is a little bit more awareness about the length and the complexity of your supply chain and the ownership that you don't have. You can't like enforce your people try, but it's really hard to enforce your code of conduct all the way down the supply chain. It's just really challenging to do so. And if you look at things like DORA, there is an element in DORA that says do not have a complex supply chain. You can't control things that farther down. It gets foggier and foggier, and you're still liable for what happens at the end of that supply chain. So there's this kind of movement of kind of consolidating suppliers into smaller numbers that are more integrated with your company, that are more strategic and more committed to you, even while the number of third parties are still expanding. So people taking it seriously and understanding the whole breadth of the space, it's something that I just don't understand how people are not really seeing that.
Mm. All right, fantastic. So,
Yeah.
if we summarize our interview for someone who is listening to it and would like to walk away with one or two major takeaways, what would it be?
I think this is a really rapidly expanding and exciting market right now. If you sit and actually realize how many third parties your business works with, how integrated they are with your strategies, with your technologies, with your future growth at organization, it's really, really important to understand those relationships better, to be able to evaluate them, to be able to pull in risk intelligence and to continuously monitor those engagements. So you have performance monitoring, you have contract monitoring, things like that. And you really need to commit to it. It's something that I think those who take it seriously and those who build resiliency strategies, so you have redundancies in the supply chain, you have options, you have not just one provider, that kind of thing. You have a much richer or organization, and you have a much richer opportunity for your business. So it's worth investing in, it's worth doing well, it's worth taking seriously.
Awesome. So, Lauren, that's why all my questions. Perhaps if I forgot to ask you something that you think important to our audience, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great time to be in this industry. I think not just because of the regulations and things driving changes in it, but it's the market's driving changes. There's more scrutiny out there for accountability, for transparency in the supply chains, sustainability. This is not going anywhere. ESG is not going anywhere. This is promises to have a big opportunities in the future for those who become experts in this space. There's a big pathway ahead of you. So it's a great time to be in this market and great time to talk to people like you, Boris.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, maybe a few words about your company, Aravo. What you guys do kind of differently from other solutions?
Sure. I mean, Aravo has been in the market for more than 20 years. We tend to work with companies that have solutions that they haven't been able to satisfy with other vendors out there. It is something that's very scalable, very robust, and gives you that kind of centralized. And we have a lot of customers that come with diverse programs and fractured systems, and you come in and you centralize it all in one solution through which you can do all your communications, all your risk of onboarding, your risk, your third-party assessments, the risk intelligence pieces of it, the whole continuous monitoring and offboarding, all that kind of stuff can be done in one solution at scale, at any kind of complexity, any kind of scope you need, expansive to anything that I mean, we really satisfy any kind of need out there. It is a really strong solution in a very vibrant market, and I'm proud to work here. I think we have an edge in the market, and we have a lot of really great analyst endorsements and a lot of really good company names. So some of our customers are, I think, pretty much all of our customers are household names. So you know, we provide a lot of really great services in a really dynamic market, and that's important.
Fantastic. Thank you again, and I wish you great success, you and your company, Aravo. And I hope
Yep.
we will cooperate in the future with your
Likewise.
platform.
Yeah, I hope so. Thanks, Boris.
Okay. Thank you.